podcast with Joe Otto.
That's what the Second Amendment was designed to do. If you're going to do something to nullify or take away my rights under the Constitution, come get it.
Max McGuire.
And you look at politicians on the left, they need to convince people that they are victims.
A resistance to the resistance. And now your hosts, Joe Otto and Max McGuire.
And welcome back to another edition of the Conservative Daily Podcast. As always, my name is Max McGuire.
And this is Joe Otto.
And today we're going to be talking about Trump's latest executive order, his decision to suspend all immigration into the United States. Now, we're going to talk about where that legal power comes from. We're going to talk about the Democrats losing their minds over it, accusing him of being xenophobic and racist. And we're going to talk about why it's a very good idea during what will likely amount to be a depression to stop the influx of foreigners, both legal and illegal immigrants, getting into the United States.
Yeah, it's going to be, we got a lot to talk about, Max. We got a lot to talk about.
We do. So I want to read off Trump's tweet because he's signing the executive order today. And this is what Trump put out last night at 9 p.m. Quote, in light of the attack from the invisible enemy, as well as the need to protect the jobs of our great American citizens, I will be signing an executive order to temporarily suspend immigration into the United States. Now, we've talked about this power that Trump has in the past. We've talked about, I mean, it's the same power that Trump used to implement his original travel ban. It's the same power that Trump used to ban Chinese migrants and travelers from entering the United States after the coronavirus was discovered in Wuhan, China. And this power, Joe, comes from USC 8, Section 1182, Section F, which is called the suspension of entry or impositions of restrictions by president. And that part of the law, it stems from the 1952 Immigration and Nationality Act. And what it says is, quote, whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens or any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, he may by proclamation, and for such period as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of any aliens any restrictions he may deem to be appropriate. So the law it gives him wide latitude. If the president of the United States believes it is not in the interest of the United States to have people coming in, he can either do a targeted approach, which we saw with the original travel ban, identifying countries that weren't doing a good job of vetting people, or in the case of the Chinese ban, saying that, okay, Chinese migrants and travelers pose a specific risk, or he can do it for all immigration, which is what we just saw Trump do, which he's about to do, which is ban all immigration, both legal and illegal, into the United States. It's a big deal, Joe.
Yeah, but I mean, he's basically following what he thinks is best for the American people, right? So you can't, if we can't control what's happening with this virus, although again, you've already heard my thought on this virus and the hyperbole that's been created around it. I don't think President Trump had a choice. I don't think he had a choice but to say, all right, well, the media has made this big deal out of it. The Democrats made a big deal out of it. It's like Chicken Little running around saying the sky is falling. I'm going to take the path of least resistance on this because obviously I want to support the people that they're now making fearful. It's like yelling fire in a movie theater, and but now he's just saying one step further. Okay, great. We want to keep everybody safe. Great. Nobody else comes into this country on the immigration side until we get this figured out. Period.
Yeah. Well, I want to open this up to callers. If you want to call in, let us know what you think about this. Honestly, I thought that Trump should have done this a long time ago, but the call-in number is toll-free, 888-441-1121. I want to get into a bit of the backlash that Trump's getting from liberals and leftists. Let's go down the list. This is a tweet from Representative Ilhan Omar, the alleged brother lover. She says, quote, Trump will ban immigration but allow some southern states to loosen restrictions. This has nothing to do with our safety and everything to do with his blatant xenophobia. Pathetic. Joe, how could we ever recover as a country if we're still bringing people into the United States? If the whole purpose of Americans sheltering in place is to flatten the curve, even when that curve is flattened, we'll always be at risk if we're still letting people just waltz into the country, right?
Right. 100%.
And this
100%.
argument from Omar that letting southern states open up but blocking immigration is somehow xenophobic. It's not. When you put Americans first, it doesn't make you xenophobic. And just to break it down, xenophobia, the fear of outsiders, the fear of the other. Yes, there is a legitimate reason to be afraid of people entering the country, considering the fact that we have the coronavirus because of people entering the country. It's not racist. It's not xenophobic. It's just practical. When you have other countries who are doing a much worse job of vetting and of rooting out the virus, how could you possibly let people come into the United States? How could you possibly have the visa lottery, right? Where you just are bringing people in on the basis of diversity. Bringing people into the country on the basis of diversity means you're bringing them into the country from countries that are doing a really bad job of testing, a really bad job of handling the outbreak. It would be suicide. It would be absolutely suicide. And this idea that we should have states locked down and immigrants still coming in, or that it's racist to open up states but not let immigrants into the country, it's just so incredibly maddening. Here's another tweet from Elizabeth Warren. She says, immigrants are on the front lines of the coronavirus response, putting their lives on the line to make sure communities are fed, healthy, and safe. The Trump administration needs to stop using this pandemic as a cover to implement their xenophobic agenda. Now, what Trump did was say no one else can come into the country. Whether or not there are immigrants working on the front lines doesn't matter. They're already in the country, right? He's talking about no one else coming into the country. This argument that we need to keep our borders open because doctors are pouring in across the southern border, it's insane. It's completely devoid of any rationality, any facts. It is propaganda.
Well, the issue is, if we just set politics aside, you can't have one side saying that we want to keep everybody safe and keep everybody inside, but yeah, let's just let the immigration just do what it wants to do and have people walk across the border, and they'll be fine. We won't vet them for any sort of diseases. We won't vet them for any sort of issues that they may be bringing into our country. Let's just let that. It's racist if you cut off the borders. So we've made an issue that, by the way, is not a partisan issue. It's not an issue about being a Republican or a Democrat or liberal or a conservative. It has nothing to do with that. Mm-hmm. They're taking an issue that really has more to do with the fact that, frankly, let's call it what it is. It becomes a political fight. It becomes something they use as a political tool to divide, confuse the American people. And if you don't think that's actually what this is all about, then you haven't been paying attention for the last month.
Yeah.
You have the media. You have the media on one side, which is creating and causing all sorts of propaganda. I mean, the amount of propaganda that we are being fed on a daily basis. I don't care what you believe. Yeah. You could believe that, hey, the sky is falling, that this virus is the next apocalypse. You could actually think that, right? And I would still tell you that the propaganda is deep. It's deep.
It is.
You can't have faith.
Here's another. I want to get to a couple more tweets. And again, anyone listening, if you want, call in and let us know what you think. What do you think about Trump closing down the borders, suspending all immigration? Call in toll free at 888-441-1121. So here's a tweet from the ACLU. Our nation faces an extraordinary health crisis at this time. Xenophobia and racism are not the answer. Here's a tweet from Kamala Harris. Trump is trying to distract and deflect from his failure to address the ongoing pandemic. To our immigrant community, know that we see you and we won't stop fighting against Trump's anti-immigrant agenda. These people have lost their minds, Joe. They have lost their minds. They are still. It was just a couple weeks ago that Democrats finally agreed closing our borders to China was a good idea. They called it racist. They called it xenophobic. Then Joe Biden came out of nowhere and said, "Oh no, I changed my mind. I actually agreed." Then all the Democrats started agreeing again. Now Trump has expanded that order.
That Biden actually stood up on the national stage and said that we all need to vote for Trump.
yeah. Joe Biden also did say that, but it's remarkable to see how deep the Trump hate is, how deep the Trump derangement syndrome is, because they went from calling it racist to shut down the borders to agreeing that, yes, it saved lives, but it should have been done earlier. That's their new claim. And now they're back to saying it's racist and xenophobic. Any immigrants listening to this, if you're in the country, you're in the country. If you're in illegally, then yes, you probably should look over your shoulder constantly. But if you're in the country legally, you're not going to get deported because of Trump's order. This is just fear mongering, saying that we won't stop fighting against Trump's anti-immigrant agenda. These leftists are insane. They're actually treating this as if this is an immigration issue. They would rather keep us all in our homes and have open borders than close the borders and let us all go on with our lives.
Max, it's business as usual. It's business as usual. They want to get back to business as usual. And that is, how do we make this a place where we can divide the American people? They're seeing that the American people are coming together for the one issue, and that is, hey, we have to reopen our country.
Yeah.
Like, oil is at a negative number. They are actually, the way that oil is actually, I don't know if anybody's paying attention to this, but
yeah, it's the futures market. So the futures market is
it's
due.
Not the futures market. The actual board was negative.
Yeah,
and when we woke up this morning.
So what people did is they bought futures and they expected the value to go up so they'd be able to cash it out. But if they hold on to those futures and it goes down, then they either need to sell them by yesterday, or they would have had to take possession of the oil, which is insane. When you're buying, when you're playing the market like this, the idea that you have to take possession of the oil. It terrified people. But I want to get back to this.
Yeah, I think I'm going to actually do that.
I want to get back to this. I want to get back to this, Joe, because here's a statement from Jerry Nadler. President Trump now seeks to distract us from his fumbled COVID-19 response by trying to put the blame on immigrants. Jerry Nadler says this is a disgrace, demonizing so many of those who are serving on the front lines against COVID, while the president shows himself as small and ineffective. Again, they're saying that. Yeah. They're trying to make this out as if Trump's attacking people in the country already. You can't tell me with a straight face that we're in a life or death situation and the only way to save American lives is to keep our southern border open. That the only way
I could probably convince you that I got a straight face.
The only way to save American lives is to keep the visa diversity lottery open, which is not merit. That's not merit immigration at all. That's just people put their name in a hat. Not hat, but in a database, and it randomly selects people based on how diverse they are, because bringing diverse people into the country is their idea of immigration. That we should keep the family member visas open, which is if you're a legal permanent resident, you can bring your family members into the country. Saying that we need to let someone bring their abuelo or abuela into the country, that doesn't help keep us safe.
Well, let's talk about what the alternative is, right? And how it affects the American people. I want to just talk about this specifically. So the American people right now are not concerned about immigration. So cut off immigration. It doesn't affect the American people right now, because right now the American people are burning, and the people that aren't burning think, hey, I don't know why you guys don't like staying home. I mean, I still get my paycheck, right? And while small businesses, they're predicting now this morning, the Wall Street Journal stated that 23% of businesses, small businesses, small to medium businesses, SMBs, in the United States will not reopen. 23%. I want to just for a minute just concentrate on the fact that the left wants to concentrate on immigration and xenophobia and the fact that he's racist and blah 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 blah. Which, by the way, is never been proven by anything that Trump has actually done. Nothing. I mean, nothing that he's done has been supported by any of the indictments of character that the left has actually represented. But people right now are hearing all of this stuff, and they're sitting at home, and you know what they're saying to themselves? They're saying, I don't care. Do whatever you want at the border at this point. Like, I can't feed my family. Right? I'm more worried about the fact that I invested all this money into my business.
Yeah, people are not saying do whatever you want at the border. Every time we've ever had a depression or a recession in this country, we've seen Congress or the president shut down immigration. Joe, there's 22 million people unemployed in this country.
But that's what I'm saying.
Every single one of them.
Care. Tell me how many of those people actually cares right now what we do with immigration.
They absolutely
do. Shut down.
They
want to shut down.
Yeah, no, they want to shut down.
They don't see it as a race issue. They don't see it as.
Of course not. It's not a race issue. They looked at this as, how can you possibly keep the H-1B visa program open, which anyone who doesn't know, H-1B visas are given to foreigners who are high skilled, and the purpose is for companies to fill positions that they cannot find Americans to work the job. So if they can't find an American to work a programming job or some high skilled, high trained job, then they turn to foreigners. The whole thing's a scam. It's always been a scam. There's always Americans willing to do the jobs. The companies just want to hire foreign workers because they're willing to work for less, because part of the perk is that you get to come to the United States. It's always been a sham. You can't argue that there's a shortage of Americans willing to do the job when there's 22 million Americans unemployed. For every specialty that you could possibly think of that you would need a foreign worker to come in to do, there are hundreds of Americans ready, willing, and able to do that job. So yeah, H-1B out the window. H-2B, which is seasonal, temporary work, which is usually like hospitality industry. The hospitality industry has been destroyed, right? Hotels, resorts destroyed. Many will not reopen, and Americans will lose their job. This idea that we have to bring foreigners into the country because there's no Americans willing to do the work, absurd. You look at things.
But I want to back up. You said something about, hey, we're headed towards a depression. This is probably going to turn into a depression.
If it goes along, it will.
It's not going to go on. It's not going to go on. It's not going to go on because the strong in this country are standing up while the media literally does what they do and say that, we in Colorado, we had 10,000 people participate in the protest in Colorado, right, at the Capitol building. And the media came out and said it was a couple hundred people. They literally came out and said that. They lie. And the people that are there know that they lie. And then they went home with their pictures of the 4,000 people that were literally on the lawn and the cars that were backed up for 3 miles down the road.
Yeah.
And they say they're liars. 9 News, liars. 7 News, liars.
Yeah. We know the media.
Liars.
We know the media.
Liars.
We know the media lies, right? But in order to have a depression, you just need one of two things. You either need a recession that lasts for longer than 2 years, or you need real GDP to decline by more than 10%.
But Max,
our
I'm
GDP
not
is
participate.
I know, but our GDP is down 10%.
That doesn't matter. I'm not participating in that. It's going to be a depression.
I know,
you know why?
But definitionally, it's a depression.
The hysteria that actually gets created is much greater on the side if we try to walk down this rabbit hole of, oh my God, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. The sky is not going to fall because the American people are not going to allow it to fall.
No, but you have to treat it this way. You have to treat it this way because that's how you close the immigration. That's how you close the border. If you're saying, oh, this is just a short-term recession, Obama didn't close the borders for the recession in 2008, 2009. He made it harder for companies to hire H-1B workers, but he didn't close the borders, right? It's one thing if you make that argument, then it's harder to pressure the people in power to make the right decisions, right? So definitionally, we are in a depression. Definitionally, our GDP has dropped more than 10%. You cannot have 22 million Americans unemployed. You cannot be talking about the statistic you just said, 23% of businesses won't reopen. You can't have that and not lose 10% GDP. We're in a depression. The only question is how long it's going to last.
You're absolutely wrong.
So you're saying
we're going to disagree.
So you're saying that GDP has not dropped this quarter more than 10%.
It has dropped more than 10%.
We're in a depression.
A lot more.
The only doubt is how long it lasts, right?
Look, if we look at, first of all, we've never had a place right now where we've had a man-made event that basically has stripped American people of their jobs. It created such hysteria and such fear that literally they're paralyzed. The people in the United States are paralyzed. We have never faced this before, Max, and I'm not going to allow this to be called a depression. And let those people out there that are listening
it's definitionally depression.
Let me finish.
We're talking on this show. We're talking on this show about how the suicide rate is surpassing the suicide rate during the Great Depression. Right? Let's call it what it is. These people destroyed the American economy. The only question is whether we're going to fight back and take this back and rebuild it, or whether we're going to let them keep doing it. But I'm not going to hide and not use the D word, the depression word. You got to call it what it is.
It's not. It's not a depression, right? We're headed towards that if we allow them to continue doing what they're doing. Don't sit here and say that over a 3-week period of time we dropped our GDP by more than 10% and now we're in a depression. We're not in a depression.
Okay.
We're not in a recession. We're actually having people in power, in government, that are literally slowing down our economy on purpose. And they're doing it for the quote unquote greater good of the United States.
Yes. And
let me do the math. 330 million people in the United States. Okay. 30,000 people. What is it? 24,000 people that have died? No one's died of a heart attack.
Right now, the number is over 40,000.
So 40,000 people. 40,000 people in the last 90 days, probably the last 6 months. right? No one's dying of the flu. Everyone's dying of the coronavirus, right? They're walking around in hysteria. There's still 330 million people in the United States.
There are, but
right?
what I'm saying is it is impossible to have a recession in which the GDP drops by more than 10%. That's one of the points.
Single indicator.
No, but that is one of the definitions of a depression.
It may be, but it's not the one I'm going to use, because I'm sure as hell not going to let somebody tell me that we're in a depression. We're not. We're in an event right now where the leadership is pushing the pause button on the American people's lives. That's what's happening right now. That's what's happening. It's not, hey, our GDP is down because we can control it. I mean, we can't control it. And it's not we can't control it because economic indicators show that the bones, the actual fundamentals of our economy are bad, because they aren't. We're being forced into a place where we're going broke and we're going hungry. That's not happening because of some sort of depression. You could say that, hey, we're entering into a depression. It's down. If we look at time, it could get there if we don't do something. But the American people are doing something right now. Yes. They're standing up by the thousands, if not the tens of thousands in every area. They're being heard.
But you can't argue that the fundamentals of the economy are still strong when you just said that 23% of the businesses that have closed might not reopen. Right? Losing 23% of our small businesses, that's not strong fundamentals. This is killing this country. It's killing this country. It absolutely is. Right? Every week that we stay closed, they're now saying it's going to take us an extra month to rebuild it. And that's best case scenario. Like this is why Trump shut down the borders. This is why Trump shut down the borders, because the economic indicators, if you don't want to call it that, fine. The economic indicators show that we have now lost more than 10% of our GDP. Right?
Max,
the question is, how long is this going to last?
I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to use that as an indicator. Right? I'm going to push that aside. I'm going to take that and pick it up. I'm going to recognize the fact that our GDP is down more than 10%. I'm going to say that. And you want to know why people are on the steps of the capitals all over the country? They're on the steps of the Capitol all over the country because they're sick and tired.
Because it isn't their fault.
Treating them like they're sharecroppers.
Because it isn't their fault. It isn't their fault that this has happened. They're on.
It's not. Okay, but the point is that if you participate on the media side, which I will not allow us to do, if you participate on the media side, that now we have a depression, because if you don't think that there are people in power that want to push it to a depression to remove people from office, and I'm not going to tell you who those people are. I mean, it could be anywhere from the president of the United States all the way down. If you don't think they're using it now. He closes the borders on immigration. They want to shift focus from coronavirus to the immigration. We have protests all over the country, and they're saying, look, you either open our companies, our stores, our businesses, or we're going to have a civil war. And if you don't think that's what's been said, hey, we'll do this peacefully until you don't listen. Yeah. And if you think that we work for you, we don't work for you. You work for us.
So a week ago, Goldman Sachs released a report that suggests that the GDP, they anticipate GDP will drop 34% this quarter, and that it will be followed by the fastest recovery in American history.
Right.
That's what they predict. I get
those reports, by the way, from Goldman Sachs for a lot of reasons, but I get those reports individually. I walk through groups of other business people and we talk about those things. So I'm going to tell you that if we participate, and Goldman Sachs did not say we're in a depression. Goldman Sachs did not say.
I just told you. I just named the two ways of defining a depression: either a recession that lasts 2 years, or a downturn of at least 10% GDP in a given year. It is possible to have a depression that is shorter than 2 years. That's what I'm saying. We are right now on our way to a depression. The numbers indicate that the United States is in a man-made depression. Joe, nothing is happening in this country. I think that indicator, the 34% decline in GDP, I think that's a little generous. Honestly, I think that's generous because no one is spending, no one is buying. That's why we have to close the borders. That's why we had to close the borders, because you can't bring people into this country and expect Americans. Joe, when we had the Great Depression in this country, do you know what FDR did with immigration? He cut immigration into this country from 1 million people per year down to 6,900 immigrants into the country in a given year. That is textbook. That's what you do when you're worried about this, because you can't bring people into the country and then expect Americans to be competing against them for jobs.
Right.
My wife, when my wife was teaching, she applied to teach at a school in Denver. And during that application process, she learned that she was actually competing against illegal alien DACA recipients. So when she was interviewing for the job, the school was also interviewing illegal aliens for the position. What a lot of people don't know is illegal aliens, that one segment of immigrants in this country, 1 out of every 8 illegal aliens hold a white collar job. 1 in 8 illegal aliens hold a white collar job in this country. And I've seen it firsthand through my wife of what she had to go through fighting for a job against people who have no right to be in this country. Now that's just illegal aliens, right?
Yeah.
When you look at the immigrant community as a whole, hardworking. Right. I love legal immigrants, right? But we can't take any more in because we have to focus on ourselves. And whether you want to call it a depression or not, right now we need to put America first, right? And to see these idiots in Congress call Trump racist and xenophobic, to hear the ACLU call the president racist and xenophobic for shutting down our borders during a pandemic, it boggles the mind. It's mind-boggling.
And let's move on from calling it a depression, because I'm going to get angry, right? And you're going to be, obstinate in the fact that you think that it's a depression, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. But I'm going to talk about this, okay? What we're seeing right now is the greatest rise of American people we've ever seen, right? It's happening. And you could say that, they had this story in Denver that went global, right? And they said that these nurses were standing in front of these healthcare workers were standing in front of cars in protest of the protest, right? Well, you know what the reality was? One, they worked in the adult entertainment industry. They weren't healthcare workers, and it doesn't even matter if they were or they weren't. But the person that actually set it up, the photographer that set up that whole deal, had done this before. They were actors, so they put actors out there to make it look like or symbolize something that it wasn't. That is what the left has actually gotten to. They've gotten to the point where all they do right now is that they create stories. They make things up. And our media is infested with people like this. It's infested with it. And finally, the American people are waking up and they're saying to themselves, well, hold on a second. So you're going to give me $1,200 to shut up, sit down, stay home, and to stay hungry. Oh, and you're going to cancel schools and make it hard for me to get daycare. And then you're going to have somebody on the Democrat side say, I think that every American should have $2,000 until this is actually resolved a month. They think they can buy the American people and treat them like slaves. And if you don't think that's what they're doing, they're treating the American people like slaves. We are being treated like we don't matter, that they get to bark orders at us. Are you kidding? Are you kidding me? No, you don't get to bark orders at us. We need to reopen our states. We need the politicians to shut the you-know-what up. That's what we need to do. And by the way, when this is over and we go to November, we vote these SOBs out. They're out. Get them out. And then after we're done getting through this election in November, because Fauci wants to run his mouth and say that, yeah, I'm not sure it's safe for us to actually have an election. Are you kidding me? This clown wants to say that we can go to Walmart and pick up fruit one after the other in a line, staying 6 feet apart, but we can't vote in November. Let's do it online. Let's do it virtually. Let's do it by mailing in ballots. Get the hell out of here. I'm out. All they're trying to do is confuse. And we let this partisan, this strategy distract us from what's really happening. And the American people are saying, we're done being distracted. We're done. We're not your slaves. We're not your sharecroppers on your plantation. You don't get to tell us. So after this election, now you have hardworking, strong American people, some of them that serve their country in the military. They're coming forward saying, I'll run for office. You just remember how these politicians treated you. You remember how they made you wear a mask, a cloth mask, which, by the way, they said you can wear a cloth mask, even though a cloth mask is actually more dangerous than you than not wearing one at all. We literally have the stupidest among us as politicians. And by the way, just in Colorado, if I can just put this out there, where the hell is Cory Gardner? Where is he? Where is his mouth? Where is him talking about what's happening or having an opinion and talking to the people that are his constituents? Where's he at? He's mute.
Yeah.
How about the Perlmutter? Where's he at? Where are these guys at? Other than the talking head of Colorado that gets out there and says, hey, you guys need to stay. I know what's best for you. I know what's best for you. I'm sorry you're going broke. I still get my paycheck and I get to wear my funny little shoes. No, I'm out. I'm out. American people are tired. We've had enough. We've had enough.
Yeah, no, we definitely have. Well, we're going to take a real quick break, and when we come back, let's see if we can take some callers. Call in toll free. Let us know what you think about everything, whether it's the immigration shutdown, the lockdown of the country in general. Call in toll free 888-441-1121, and we will be right back.
Ronald Reagan famously said that our freedoms are never more than a generation away from extinction. Conservative Daily exists to make sure that never happens. With our community of 700,000 members, we fight every day to hold Congress's feet to the fire and stop them from surrendering our rights and freedoms. The fight to take this country back is not over. Please join our movement right now by going to conservative-daily.com and clicking the subscribe button to sign up for our free call to action newsletters. We have a chance to save this country, but only if we all work together. Again, this is conservative-daily.com, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button at the top.
Well, we're back with this edition of the Conservative Daily Podcast. We are talking about Trump's decision to suspend all immigration into the country. That includes illegal immigration, which the president shouldn't even have to declare that, but also legal immigration, whether that be through the visa lottery, through the family visa program, or things like H-1B, H-2B, and the like. It's absolutely necessary. You have to put the American people first. You have to put the American workers first. And you just have to put our interests first.
Yeah. So, hey, let's, there's a guy named Tim Lambert that had a question. He asked a question. He said, can you touch on the topic of farms and ranches as small businesses and how hard they're getting or going to get hit? I have a lot of questions, meat packing plants and dairies. So Tim, why don't you call in 888-441-1121. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what your experience is. I want to hear what your story is. And actually, if there's other people out there that are listening and you have a story, if you have a story about being a single mother, if you have a story about, losing your business, if you have a story about things that are happening to you, I want to hear it. And I'll literally put you on the line. I will at 888-441-1121. I will let you talk. Tell your story. Tell the people that are listening their story, and the thousands of people that will download this in the next 3 to 4 hours. Tell them your story, right? So I just want to hear someone call. And And by the way, you don't have to tell us what your name is. You can tell me your name is Matt Smith.
Yeah.
I hope there's no Matt Smiths listening, because that would be terrible.
Yeah. Now Matt Smith was about to dial, but now he's not going to do it.
Yeah.
So call in 888-441-1121 about the agricultural visas. In the long term, that will probably impact that, because you will not be able to get the temporary workers across the border. It obviously depends on how long this specific executive order lasts. If it lasts a couple months, you probably wouldn't be affected, because the people who are in the country already on these temporary foreign worker visas, they are already in the country. They're already working. The biggest problem that I've been seeing from the agricultural industry is that they can't get their goods to market. You have dairy farms being forced to dump out all of their milk because they can't get truckers to bring it to market. We've seen farms having to throw out. I mean, I was just looking at in Idaho that there were potato farms that were basically just telling everyone to come and grab potatoes, because if not, they're all going to rot, because they can't get them to market, because they can't get the truckers to bring them. It's insane. So the bottleneck appears to be through the distribution chain, not necessarily right now with the laborers who would be picking fruits and vegetables and the like. So that's what I've noticed, at least, from all this. But again, if anyone is seeing something different, call in 888-441-1121.
So we get to the point where we have one answer, right? And the answer that is being told to us is the only answer. So no one's actually coming up with any other solutions other than just shut down our economy. And had they come to us and said sensibly, hey, if you're having an immunity issue and or you're advanced in age, stay inside. We want to protect you as much as possible. we probably would have listened, right, and said, hey, that's probably a really good idea. And by the way, I'm around people that are maybe more susceptible to this virus. I'm going to go ahead and quarantine myself as well. But that's not what they did. What they did is they acted as if we, as the American people, right, we're not smart enough. We're not responsible enough to take care of ourselves. And so as business people, we have to deal with a lot of different things that happen in the marketplace. Like the market can actually indicate what is good or bad for a business over a 1 week period of time. You could literally ruin an entire industry very quickly, as they found out. And so we're very resilient. We know how to solve problems. What we can't do is solve a problem when you literally cut out everything and don't give us options and treat us as if we're children, right? I didn't ask for a daddy. Like, we all have daddies. We don't need other daddies. I don't need a daddy's daddy or another daddy, right? I don't need it. I don't need it at all. I have a daddy. I don't need another one, and I am a daddy, so I don't need more kids. What I need is them to treat us like we're grown men and women.
Yeah.
That we actually are smart enough to make decisions to protect our families, to wash our hands, right? To clean our restaurants, right? To clean our businesses. We're smart enough for that. Why are we being treated like we're not?
No, we are. And I mean, it's all over the place. It's this idea that they think we're stupid. They think that it's rational to arrest someone to fine someone $1,000 for sitting in their car with their wife or husband and watching the sunset. That's happening in California. They're fining people $1,000 for sitting in their car and watching the sunset. Fining people for going out on a paddleboard and just minding their own business. They think it's completely rational to pour tons of sand into a skate park because, God forbid, kids, the people who all the scientists agree are the least at risk for this virus, right? God forbid the kids get some of their anxieties out by skateboarding. God forbid, right? And as we talked on the show yesterday, filling it with sand, all that accomplished was turning it into a dirt bike park. Now they have dirt bikes there in the pool. So it's interesting because they treat us like we're idiots every step of the way. And this latest thing, I mean, we talk about what I just mentioned with Elizabeth Warren, with Kamala Harris, suggesting that we need to keep our borders open because immigrants are our first responders. They think we're stupid. They think that they think we actually are stupid enough to believe that. They think that we're dumb enough to believe that if you close the borders, it will have a negative health outcome in the United States. They're actually claiming that Americans will die if the borders are not kept open from the virus, that there will not be enough doctors or nurses if you close the border. It's insane. It's insulting to Americans' intelligence. I mean, you see Nancy Pelosi, she's finally admitting that she's been the one holding up all the aid. They think we're stupid. They really do. They really believe that we're dumb enough to buy what they're selling. And that's one of the reasons that we have this show, is to call out these fools and to make sure that people don't buy into the propaganda, because it's easy to do. I've seen people I thought had a good head on their shoulders. I've seen them get consumed by this, and they hear it so often they just assume it's right. They assume that Trump spent the entirety of February doing nothing, right? They actually believe these talking points. So we got to push back, and you got to just push back, and we got to keep sharing the truth, because the truth is on our side in all of this. And it was interesting. Cuomo actually agreed with Trump that he's getting too much flack on this.
So here's the question that just came across: is what are your thoughts on testing to see if you have the antibodies in your blood? And I think that the testing to see if you have antibodies in your blood is a great idea. It's a terrific idea. What I can't stomach is the fact that there are groups out there right now that are charging $150 for that test. Let's just do the math: 330 million people. Anyone want to do the math for me? It's billions of dollars. Someone is making billions of dollars on the American people over something that, by the way, if we find out that 99% of us had it, how would you feel? Let me ask you, as you put comments up, how would you feel if you found out that 99% of the U.S. already has it?
Yeah. There was just a study released yesterday out of L.A. I think it was UCLA, and their findings, when they extrapolated out, suggest that between 200,000 and 400,000 additional people in the LA area had the virus, were asymptomatic, and have the antibodies. That's what they obviously, they took a small sample, found those results, the randomized sample, and extrapolated out to the population at large. What that does is that destroys the modeling. They claim that we're looking at a death rate of a couple percent. That drops the fatality rate for this virus down to 0.1 or below, 0.1%, 0.1% or below. If that model is correct, that extrapolation is correct. The problem with the testing is that it's really easy for the antibody test to get a false positive, because unless you can dial in on the specific antibodies for COVID-19, there are tons of other coronaviruses out there. The big ones that we know are like SARS or MERS, but the common cold is technically a type of coronavirus. So the reason that so many people get false positives in these tests is because the tests are not designed to look deep enough and to identify the difference between a coronavirus antibody and a common cold antibody. So that's one of the issues with the test. They're saying it could be as high as a 50% false positive, which you can't do that. You can't put the reopening of the economy on the backs of a test system where it's a coin flip on whether it's accurate or not. And that's the challenge, because the antibodies are so similar to other diseases that are prevalent and relatively harmless. It's hard to dial in and tell the difference from a scientific level between a coronavirus, a COVID-19 antibody, and any of the other coronavirus antibodies. So that's one of the biggest challenges and fears about hanging your hat on that as the solution.
Yeah. We get to the point where I'm less fired up right now than I was before, because I'm just kind of trying to.
If you want to get fired up, I'll keep talking about how we're in a depression.
Yeah. Oh, Eric just gave me a $495 billion. If you want to know how much that is, at 150 per person at 330 million. Yeah, it doesn't. Let me just say this, and it doesn't affect me as much as it does people that I know and I see. Like this shutdown, the diversification that we have as an organization, the things that we do, and obviously I contribute a lot to this cause, right? But this isn't the main thing that we do, and because of the things that we have, that the other businesses that we're involved in, it doesn't have as much of an effect on me. But I would be, how selfish would I be if I just stood aside and watched people burn and said, man, I'm sure glad that's not me.
Yeah.
When I know that the reason why they're burning is because we have poor leadership. The reason why we're burning is because we're letting the weak lead. The reason why that we're burning right now is because we can't come up with another option other than just shutting down the economy and hurting everyone.
Yeah.
And what about the unintended consequences? I don't want to talk about suicide. How about the mother that I met on Sunday, who's a single mom that is a hairdresser that can't cut hair. She can't get another job because her kid can't go to daycare, can't go to school. It is literally like the Bermuda Triangle. These people are disappearing. We don't even get to hear about them. We don't get to hear about them. Who do we get to hear about? We don't get to hear about them. We don't get to hear their stories, right? We literally are sitting in a place right now where the only narrative that we get is one by the media, and the media does nothing but lie.
Yeah.
They just can't stop lying.
So we don't want to talk about the suicide because it's super depressing. There was a study that just came out of the UK. And so the UK now is projecting that they expect 20,000 of their citizens to die from COVID-19. But what the healthcare industry is warning is that if you just look at cancer patients alone, the disruption in their chemo and their radiation schedules, they anticipate far more people will die from cancer and they could have been cured simply because of the disruption in that area of the health industry. So that's the UK. Think about the United States, probably far and above that number, right? We're probably talking about double whatever the number of coronavirus deaths end up being in the United States, probably talking about double that number of Americans who die from cancer simply because they're not going in to get their radiation and their chemo treatments. Across the board, it's not just suicides. This is killing more people. This lockdown, this panic is killing more people than the virus itself. And when we look at the fact that, yes, the virus, it disproportionately affects the elderly, people with pre-existing conditions, it's heartbreaking. Every loss of life is heartbreaking. But you can't tell me that the solution is to have a bunch of people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s committing suicide, right? That children with leukemia and other cancers, they should die. I mean, it's a horrible calculus. Whoever put us in this position, I mean, the fact that Fauci and Birx are still up there, it angers me, because none of these people have the actual courage to admit they were wrong. When they talk about this, it's always, oh, well, we had faulty data. Oh, well, we had bad modeling. At the end of the day, these were the people who convinced Trump to pull the trigger and to shut it down.
Because
none of these people will admit
they've been talking about, people have been talking about, I would like to see the economy get wrecked so that Trump doesn't get reelected. And all it's done is pissed off the American people to where they're woken up. Look, I'm just going to say it. You want to see people who go past the point of desperation, that look back generations and say to themselves, look what they've done. They're taking everything that my grandfather died for, my father served for, that I served for, that my sister, my brother, my uncle, my cousin, my friends, they all served and sweat and blood and sacrifice. They're taking all that, throwing it out the window and saying, oh, that doesn't matter. Yeah, because he's a xenophobe and he's a racist and and it's all just talk from little maggots that literally have no courage, not in their entire body. They hide behind people. They hide behind things. And, oh, you can't treat me that way. Let's talk about civility. Well, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Civility. It's going to go out the freaking door. It's going to go out the door, because the American people are going to get to the point where they've had enough. And when they get to the point where they've had enough, and you get enough people to get together and say they have enough, well, first of all, you're going to have to deal with Mark Zuckerberg blocking them on Facebook. You're going to have to deal with that. But once you get past that, the fact that they're trying to control the narrative and say that it's misinformation, that people are pissed. I mean, can you imagine? They're taking down pages, right, on Facebook of people trying to protest using their First Amendment freedom.
Yeah.
They're having a company
just
that
disagreeing
right,
with the government.
And it's disagreeing with them. It's not disagreeing with the government. It's disagreeing with that person.
Yeah.
Right.
That one person decided to lock down the entire economies of those states, and it's now a crime to disagree, even if you do so in the comfort of your own home virtually. It's a crime. It's such a crock. It really is.
Here's Eric that just said something. He says, my wife's annual mammogram was delayed 3 months. She is a higher risk. That's considered non-essential. Yeah. What in the heck is a mammogram imaging device needed for the technician to run it? I know not for COVID treatments.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean,
so
there's a lot of procedures that have been deemed non-essential. That how can you tell someone that cancer treatments or mammograms or colonoscopies, how can you say it's not essential? They've spent years pumping up these procedures saying you gotta get this done. If you don't get it done, even if you miss it a couple months, you could die. And now they're saying, oh no, not as important. I mean, Joe, it's gonna be startling when the final numbers come out of just how many people died because of this, but not from COVID-19.
And they're going to make excuses. It's not going to be their fault. They're going to say it's Trump's fault.
Yeah.
Right? Well, by the way, our leadership in the state, this state at least, did nothing. We have governors that are signing bills in Virginia that strip away your Second Amendment rights in the middle of all this. Yeah. You shouldn't be signing anything other than
in the middle of all this, getting rid of voter ID.
Yeah. How do you do all that in the middle of all this? How do you even carry on business as normal? Because it doesn't bother them. It has no effect on them.
Yeah.
They get paid. They get their pensions. It's guaranteed. Serve, you get your pension, no problem. Serve 4 years pension. How many of you would like to work 4 years, just 4 years, and be guaranteed a pension at retirement equal to what you got paid for that 4 years?
Realize that they're usually double or triple dipping. A lot of those people have been in the state legislatures before this, so they get that too, right? They've held other bureaucratic jobs, so they get pensions there. I've met government officials who are triple dipping on pensions. Someone who was a firefighter.
Yeah.
He was a police officer, and then he ran for office. And if he's in office, it was a state level guy. If he's in office for a couple more years, he'll get a pension for that too. He'll be triple dipping on pensions. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I think that we've at some point got to get to the point where we're just willing to say enough. We're just willing to say we've had enough.
Yeah.
And stand up, stand strong, take a little bit of a risk, and maybe even sacrifice yourself. Be the first one to get shot. My wife and I talked about this, and we said, what's the alternative? Because she said to me, this isn't your fight, Joe. And I go, it is my fight. She goes, it's not your fight. And I go, it's my fight. And I'm accepting the fact that this is my fight. And she goes, why do you think it's your fight? And I was like, because if I don't, who will?
Yeah. If not me, who? If not now, when?
And she said, well, someone else will. And I go, and you know what? There's someone else out there that's just like me that is sitting there going, I don't really want to do this, because I got to tell you, Max, I don't want to fight. I just want to be happy and laugh and smile. You know how I am. I like to have a good time, right? I want to just have a good time. I want to just, have a beer with a bunch of buddies and meet new people. And I love meeting new people, but I can't, because I got this thing called a brain, and I got this thing called courage. And frankly, my courage is something that I'm going to use. And I've used it my entire life to feed my family. I've used my entire life to be successful. And now I'm to the point where I'm like, well, why not? I mean, if not me, who?
Yeah.
My wife is like, she's like, yeah, I will support you 100%, but I'm going to tell you that this is going to be a hard fight. And I go, good. Because I've been trying to get myself in a big fight, and this might be this might be the one that I can't win.
There's a principle in psychology. It's called the Kew Gardens principle, but it's also known as Genovese syndrome, named after Kitty Genovese. She was a woman in 1964 who was stabbed outside of an apartment building where she lived, and there was a startling number of people who saw the murder, but none of them did anything because they expected that someone else would. And when you look at the Kew Gardens principle, Genovese syndrome, bystander effect, whatever you want to call it, unfortunately, they claim that 38 people saw the stabbing, but none of them called police because they all assumed someone else was going to do it. The problem with human behavior is that is our go-to. Unfortunately, the bystander effect is real. If a bunch of people see something, that's why when you see someone fall down and there's a doctor on the scene, the doctor says, call 911. And when you get trained to this, you're not just supposed to say someone call 911. You're supposed to point to someone, point them out by name and say, you call 911. Because if you just say someone do it, no one will do it. It's the same deal here, right? Everyone's at home. Right. Everyone's experiencing this. Everyone's feeling these same emotions. Well, not everyone. We talked about that yesterday. There's a strangely large amount of people who are enjoying the shutdown. But plenty of people are seeing this. They're feeling the same way, feeling the same rage, the same anger. But this principle is still in effect. Human psychology has not changed. The bystander effect is real. The vast majority of them will continue to sit on their couch, binge watching Netflix, waiting for permission to go back to work. It will. What you're seeing out and about in these protests, you're seeing probably just a percent of, or maybe even a percent of the people who want to be there actually go. And even that is numbering in the thousands. So yeah, it's the if not me, who? If not now, when? Because if you don't, it is entirely likely that no one will.
Well, I like, what is it, Doc Holliday? I'll be your Huckleberry, right? I mean, and the reality of it is that in the moment that nobody's watching, what will you do? Everyone talks about what you'll do when you stand up, like, I told him. Yeah. No, there's a lot to be risked by actually even having the conversations that I'm having. Right? It is infectious. Courage is as infectious as fear. They are using fear. We must use courage. And courage is not the absence of fear, but doing something courageous despite that fear.
Yeah. Being afraid and doing the right thing anyway.
And so it's so it's funny. Somebody said in the thing, the government can't eat you or take away your birthday. My two favorite things to say. Well, they can't eat you and they can't take away your birthday. You just keep going.
Yeah.
Right. And the reality of it is they can't. They can't take away your birthday and they can't eat you. And if they do take away your birthday, which means they kill you, someone else will come in behind you because that courage is infectious.
Yeah.
And what you do it matters. It matters what you do. This is not about what we're trying to do across the country is not about, not loving our country. It's not loving our government. It's not loving the oppression that we feel. And by the way, it's made me relook at everything. Like I'm having conversations and phone calls with people that, frankly, Max, I've never had with. I reached out to Black Lives Matter, and I was like, hey, listen,
don't
I
do
want
that.
to talk to.
Oh, don't do that.
Oh, I did.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I did. It's not that I wanted to have a
This
conversation.
is one of those times where I tell you you're going too far.
No, I'm not.
I gotta pull you back over to the right.
I'm having a conversation because it's about freedom. Let's step aside for politics. Let's step aside out of a singular issue, and let's get to the single issue of the American people. That's it. Let's just talk about that. And let's be brave enough, by the way, to say things that other people are just not afraid to say, that people are afraid to say. And by the way, if you get up on a stage and you get a conversation going with someone who's a leader, a governor, a politician, and they start with it, oh, you don't understand. I don't understand. Please, Daddy, please tell me what I don't understand. Please tell me what I'm supposed to understand right now that I'm not getting. Because frankly, you know what I'm getting right now? I'm getting the idea that you think that you're above us as people, and you think that the government and the politicians are the elitist.
Yeah.
See, it doesn't matter how much money you have, Max. It doesn't matter unless you get to be that top 0.25% out there. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You're still a target, right? And you're a bigger target because they want to take as much as they can from you.
Yeah.
But those guys, they get to control the politicians and the government, and they get to push down on you. This is not anti-American. This is all American and anti what they've been able to do to us. They act with impunity because they have immunity. And until we actually get to the point where it pisses us off enough, we will never have our Boston Tea Party moment.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to cut this off in a little bit, running up against a hard break. But I want to tell you this, Joe. Julian Castro, former Texas politician, ran for the 2020 Democratic nomination. He is warning that Trump's decision to cut off immigration will crater our nation's economy.
Yeah, okay.
I just find that funny because it seems like it's the leftists like him, the ones doing the cratering. Well, that's going to be it for this edition of the Conservative Daily Podcast. Anyone watching on Facebook, today I added all of the links for you to subscribe to the podcast on the Google Play Store, Apple Podcasts. If you're listening over the airwaves, you can subscribe to us on the Google Play Store or on the Apple Store. You can also find us on the Podbean app as well as conservative-daily.com/podcasts. So again, my name is Max McGuire.
This is Joe Otto.
And remember that the fight to take back our country is not over, but the only way we can win is if we all fight together.